My name is Rachel Rofe. I created the show because I wanted to help you see that if you have a choice, you can choose a better life. If you're listening to this podcast, you're in a pretty fortunate position. You have free will, ability to connect to the internet, and access to all kinds of new education. This podcast is meant to help you make the most of your good fortune. We talk with all kinds of people here from all walks of life because I want you to see that no matter what your situation, there's always a way to create a life that you're proud of. Hello. Thank you for coming and listening to another show. Today is with Honorée Corder, and if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you may recognize her name. She was actually on another show a couple months back, and that was actually one of my favorite shows. I think she's a really great person, and particularly she had shared this 12 by 12 networking strategy that was just sensational, and it was actually so good that somebody who was listening to the show found her address and sent her individual fan mail because she thought it was so helpful. So in today's show, we talk about this 12 by 12 in more detail. So we talk about basically networking with people and creating business relationships is a lot like dating. So we talk about that. And we just talk about the best kind of etiquette for following up with people, making relationships, how to follow up with people, what to say, how to schedule it in your calendar to make sure that you have time to do it, what the cornerstones of a successful networking career are. So a whole bunch of different things around just attracting great people into your life, because if you do have great relationships, it makes life so much easier, especially around business. So we cover a lot of ground here, and I hope that it helps you. All right, enjoy. All right, well, thank you so much for being here.
Oh, I'm so delighted to be with you.
Yes, me too. Whenever I think about, my favorite podcast episodes, yours always comes up to the top of mind, really. So this is going to be spectacular. Yeah.
I'm going to live on that the rest of the day. Thank you.
My pleasure. So, as you know from being here before, the intention behind the show is just to show people if they have a choice, they can choose a better life. So, can you take a minute to brag again? What are some things that you're proud of right now?
Right now, I'm proud that I have completed my next book. I am proud that I have a 15-year-old daughter who is just the most lovely young lady. I am proud that I have been married to my best friend for almost 7 years. And I wake up every morning and he's still there. So I must be doing something right.
Those are some great things to be proud of. And yes, your book. So there's so much I want to ask you about that. So new book called Business Dating, Applying Relationship Rules in Business for Ultimate Success. And I know from our last chat that you are crazy qualified to write this book. So yeah, no, seriously, I can't wait to get into the 12 by 12 again. I mean, dude, for people listening, this 12 by 12 strategy is so spectacular that not only have people been raving to me about it, but someone actually got your address, right, and mailed you fan mail about it. That's
Yes.
Amazing.
So I wrote them back.
Did you?
Well, I know there are some people that are like, oh, I get so much fan mail, I could never write them back. And I thought, well, I can write one. I can write them back. I actually write back everyone who emails or messages me. Because I think if they take the time to do it, I can take the time to write them back. So if that person came through you, even more better. That's awesome.
Seriously, so did you snail mail them back, or did they give you an email address too?
No, she put her address on the envelope, so I wrote her back.
Oh, that's so cool. I love that. So let's jump into this book. First question I'm curious about is just why did you decide to write the book?
Okay, so business dating is about creating relationships in business. And I found myself as an executive coach, when I was talking to my clients, I was relating personal dating to building relationships in business, or as I've coined it, business dating. And what I've discovered is that people don't always understand that business relationships take time to build. When two people meet in business, and this has happened to me so many times, if someone would meet me, give me their card, and then be like, okay, girlfriend, when are you going to show up with all this contacts? And I'm thinking, I don't know you. And it was kind of like meeting a guy in a bar and him going, all right, honey, let's go.
Yes.
And everybody understands. I actually had a client call me earlier today. I sent her an advance copy of the book, and she called me and she said, this is brilliant. She said, everybody understands what a one-night stand is. Everybody understands someone who tries to get to you faster than you would like them to. And I obviously want to avoid being crass or offending anyone, but you understand what I'm saying, is there's that person that will say, come on, let's go. Take off your pants. Let's get this done. And you're like, what do you mean? I just met you. But that happens in business all the time, and it seems to be this commonplace situation.
Absolutely.
People were complaining to me about it, saying, how do I tell people to slow down? That maybe, after a few times of dating, I would be happy to open up my Rolodex, but just as you want to make sure that the guy you go home with isn't a serial killer, you also want to make sure that the person that you give your contact access to is not a transactional person that's going to offend them, because they're not going to hear about it. You're going to hear about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. I'm so glad that you wrote this book. And I mean, obviously it is really important to just create relationships. So it's important to know how to do it right if you're going to do it. And I was actually wondering for you, if you had to pick like your top 3 things that you required or that would help you be successful, would networking be on there? And what would your other 2 be as well, if networking is?
Oh, sure. So yes, I think relationships are one of the things that you must have when you're building a business, when you're building a life. Right? One of our needs as people is connection. So you have to be able to connect with other people. I think to be successful, an unwavering positive attitude is another one, and time management would be the third one, although I could probably keep going.
Yeah.
I could probably think of a few more.
Oh, absolutely, but those are some really good ones. I'm just putting them in my daily schedule, and for sure I think those are some of the biggest ones, too. For those who've been listening to the beginning, we mentioned the 12 by 12. Before I even get into the other questions, it's probably really helpful just for people who haven't listened to the first show, or even people who did, just for the refresher. Can you go over that again?
Oh, sure. So the 12 by 12, I list all of the things that I write about are basically for me first when I create them. And the 12 by 12 system is a system that helps me and now helps my clients and lots of people to keep track of their network. And it was born out of my desire to do 2 things. Number 1, effectively keep track of my contacts. And number 2, stop missing opportunities. So the way that it's designed now, and it's been around for a dozen years for me, in its current form, it's a step-by-step process to help everybody to create a viable and enviable network. So even if you've never networked before, it takes you basically from either having 1, 2, 3, or 20 contacts to having 12 dozen solid contacts of people that you know. So 144 people that you know and that know you, and you sat down with them and you're building relationships. And in the overall scheme of life, 144 people isn't that many. When you have 144 people that know what you do, then there's this really cool thing that happens. I'm sure you want to know what it is.
Yes.
Okay. You have what I call a referral-only business. And a referral-only business is where you're no longer having to go out to random networking events. And, no offense to the chambers, but Chamber of Commerce new member mixers, right, where you're just trying to sort through the large bastions of people to find maybe that one person that you really should know. You've actually already identified who you need to know, organized those people that you know, and figured out who you don't know, discover who you need to know, and then you have the directive of who do you need to connect with.
Absolutely. So how does it work? What do you do for it?
Well, you download and so as part of the book, actually, I give links to my website where I'm actually just giving away the 12 by 12. I kept it as proprietary for my clients, but I just decided with this book I was going to give it to the world. So it's available for free on my website as part of purchasing business dating. But what you'll do is download the form. Basically, it's not even complex at all. It's basically 13 columns, and you identify who your strategic partners are. As a podcaster, I'm trying to think who a strategic partner would be for you. So I'm going to not waste any more time, and I'm going to say if you're a lawyer, right, if you're a business lawyer, an ideal contact for you, an ideal strategic partner for you would be a CPA. So you would have your most likely columns of strategic partners starting from left to right and from most likely to least likely. So you put in CPAs in your network, and you would say, oh my gosh, I know Rachel, she's a CPA, and you put her name in the box. So you've identified Rachel as a contact. And then you go, oh my gosh, this is bad. I have 11 open boxes. Then you think, well, but now I know I need to know CPAs, and so you go find other CPAs to network with. So it's directed and non-direct.
Right. Yeah. I remember you were saying, so in the last show, you have the 12 different, people that would be potentially strategic alliances, and then you put 12 names of people for each of those columns. And you were saying how you just then reach out to them and say, I have customers that might be similar to the ones that you serve, and can you let me know a little bit more about the type of thing that you do, so I know, when it makes sense to pass people on to you. So then you're coming to them, and you're offering them support versus just asking for something.
It's the thing that works every time. Every single time anyone has used this language, it gets them in the door. If I call you and I say, Rachel, I network like a super freak all over the country, and I know all these amazing entrepreneurs, and I would love to talk to you about your podcast and see if there's anybody I know that should be on your podcast. So what would you say?
Yeah, I would say that sounds awesome.
Yes, but if I called you and I was like, hey, I'm so awesome to be on your podcast, and who are all the other podcast hosts that you know that need great guests on their show, what would you say? I would say nothing, right? You'd be like, click.
Absolutely. So yes, I click. So that means we're calling people, not emailing them?
You know what? It just depends. So it's varying levels of work. So let's continue with the podcast analogy because I think it works in this particular situation. If I found that you were a podcast host on LinkedIn and I didn't know you at all, I would email you and I would say, I'm a networking super freak. I go to all these cool events around the country and I know you interview entrepreneurs and I know some amazing people and I haven't heard them on your show. Could we have a conversation or maybe meet in person if you lived where I lived and vice versa about who I might introduce you to that would just be a great addition to your show? But the first thing that I would do is connect with you from the place of, here's why I'm great for you to know. And here's where I might be able to give you, can we connect? Now, if someone's made the introduction, I have a little bit more of an ask. But if I'm going at it totally cold, when I moved to Austin several years ago, I had identified who my not only strategic partners were, but also who my potential clients were. And sometimes they're the same, right? So I coach a lot of lawyers and I refer a lot of business to lawyers. And so I would send them connections on LinkedIn and I would say, I'm new to Austin, I'm a business coach, I work with people who from time to time could use your area of expertise. Let's connect on LinkedIn. So it was a very shy introduction, right? You are cute, can I have your number? Kind of ask, right? As opposed to, stuff that shirt, I want to see what's under there. What do you have in your Rolodex, baby?
Seriously.
Ask for the kind of the shy, like, hey, why don't we connect? What do you think? And then when I got the yes, so it would say, Rachel has accepted your request to connect. Then I would follow up with the second thing, which is, oh, thank you so much for connecting. As I mentioned, I'm an executive coach. I work with people from time to time, they need your area of expertise. Can we get together over lunch or coffee, my treat, to discuss who you serve and how you serve them so that from time to time I can introduce people to you?
So do you do that with every person, like lunch or coffee?
I do.
Wow. So if someone's listening to this...
That's my favorite part, caffeination and the food. Even if the date's bad, I'm still getting some yummy morsels.
That's a good point. No, what about for people who are listening to this and maybe they're thinking they're introverted or the idea of having to have 144 potentially more conversations to them, what would you say to that?
Oh gosh, I totally get that because being introverted or extroverted is not determined by whether you like people or you resonate with people. It's actually from how you recharge. So the first thing I would say is just honor how you recharge. And if having 144 meetings is overwhelming, I think having 144 meetings is overwhelming. I would say take it one meeting at a time. And keep in mind that some of your best friends and some of your best contacts that you have were once people that you did not know. And that over time you developed a relationship and now you're comfortable with it. And that's more to the point, when you're sitting in front of someone, they're not going to be asking the majority of the questions, most likely you are. They're going to be doing the talking. So when you come from a place of curiosity and interest, the person across the table from you is going to be answering all of your questions, and you get to be quiet and introverted and listen and take in information. What you're trying to determine is several things, the least of which is, can they be a strategic partner for you? You have to get to know them. You have to get them talking. So introverts don't want to share so much about themselves also, and you already know about yourself, so that's the bonus. So just be prepared with the questions, which can say here, but they're also in the book too. What do you ask somebody? Like, everyone's like, well, what do I say? What do I say on the second date? I met them, told each other what we did, and then what happened, right? So there's that what happens next kind of conversation. But in the very first conversation, you have all kinds of questions that you can ask the person to find out more about them, to see if you want to ever see them again. Do you need to ever see them again? Or could you have what I call, the trifecta of awesomeness, which is they become strategic partners, clients, vice versa, and you also like each other enough to be friends.
Yeah, that is definitely ideal. And, as you were talking, I was also thinking it would also, I know for me as an introvert, sometimes it's really helpful just for, I'll make a meeting with somebody, but I'll be very clear it's going to be an hour or half hour, whatever it is. So there's very clear guidelines, and I know that I can escape.
Yes. One of my tricks is regardless of whether I have a meeting, following my meeting, I always have something on my to-do list. And so I keep a very strict schedule and a strict production schedule. But I hate looking at my watch like, A, have we gone over time because I'm so excited to meet you, or B, how soon is it so I can get out of here? So I actually set an alarm on my phone.
Smart.
And I say, I have a hard stop at this time, and just so you know, I've set an alarm on my phone to give us a 5-minute warning. People love that.
Yeah, they're probably thinking the same thing. They're probably grateful.
Yes, exactly. And sometimes it's love at first sight, and you meet someone and you're like, oh my gosh, we could sit here all afternoon, and that's the great thing is you can leave them wanting more, you're left wanting more, and then you can have subsequent dates. They're important also.
Yes. Okay. So you're looking for these strategic alliances, which totally makes sense. 144 people, I can see them referring you to all kinds of people. Do you also try to follow up with other potential business connections, outside of the 12 by 12, or is your primary focus on that 12 by 12?
Well, the primary focus is the 12 by 12, at least for a little while, but one of the columns in the 12 by 12 is the other section. So sometimes you meet someone that's just so fantastic, but you wouldn't know 12 of them, but you might know one really terrific one that's super connected. And so you'll want to put that in the rightmost column under other.
So that makes sense. And so if you reach out to people and they don't follow up with you, or they don't respond, do you have a set amount of times that you'll try reaching out to them again?
Honestly, I'm going to say that common sense and intuition be your guide. If I reach out to someone and we have a really great first meeting and then they fall off the map, and I'm sure you've had that happen, and then someone will surface months later and they've had something happen. I've had everything happen when someone has fallen off the map before. Cancer, death, right? All kinds of things cause or a big deal, right? They'll go into the tunnel working on a deal, and then they resurface later and they're very apologetic. So that's one thing, right? Is I kind of stay in the relationship for a while just to see, right? If they're going to show back up. If I don't talk to someone for about a year after we've connected, then I kind of figure that maybe they didn't love me back, and I'm okay with that. But if I reach out to someone and say, hi, I'd like to potentially give you business, and they don't have the courtesy to respond, honestly, they're just not the type of person I want to do business with, because I'm looking for, and the whole basis for business dating is for people to recognize that they can develop mutually beneficial, long-lasting relationships with other people in business. And they can reap all of the benefits from those relationships if they're willing to do the work for them. So if someone doesn't have the courtesy to either accept my invitation or frankly decline it and say, no, thank you, I'm not interested, then they're really not the type of person that I can refer business to.
Yes.
If they're not going to respond to me, however you're going to treat me is how you're going to how I feel like you're going to treat my referral or my introduction. So I'm very careful. I'm very protective of my people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I really like that. And, I think I mentioned on the last podcast, but just to reiterate, what I really love about this whole approach and just going to people and asking how you can help them, it makes me think about, if I were to go to my email inbox, and just count up the emails per day, I'd probably get, anywhere from 2 to 10 emails a day from people wanting something from me. I mean, but to go in and just approach it like, not how can I help you or let me know if I can do anything to help you because that's just giving me more work, but like if you're actually saying, here's what I can do that benefits you, and of course I'm going to want to listen to that.
Yeah, everybody wants someone to call them up or send them an email or a LinkedIn request that says, I have potentially a whole stack of cash to put into your pocket. Would you like it? Which is essentially what you're saying.
Absolutely.
It's a different way of saying, can I help you? How can I help you? It's a different way of saying exactly the same thing, but in my opinion, it's a better way because it's the way most people aren't asking.
Well, it's definitely the better way because you're suggesting something. Like when people say, how can I help you? Then I'm thinking, well, that means if I want to get help, I'm going to need the research done, go on their website, see what they can do, see if they can fit into what I'm needing, all this stuff. So it's then like a 10 to 20 minute chore, whereas you're going to people and saying, here's exactly, like I've been watching you, I know exactly what you need, here's how I can help you. Like boom, so much better. So does the trust bridge come into play here? Can you share what that is?
Yes. So when you first meet someone, you sit at the foot of a bridge I call the trust bridge. So picture in your mind a bridge, and we've all crossed one, maybe even today. And the first handshake or connection with someone is basically where you are sitting at the foot of the bridge and you actually get on the bridge. You have the opportunity to get on the bridge. Now let's skip to the other side of the bridge, which is where you get all of the good stuff. The cash, connections, and contribution. That's what I call the fruits of the relationship, right? But you're going to have to be on that bridge, and what happens on the bridge is I go from, I know you, which means we've shaken hands, right? We're not friends. I've met you, I know your name is Rachel. That's it, okay? And then we get to trust. Oh, I'm trusting you because I'm having these number of times that we're connecting and we're sharing information about each other. And then we get all the way, you go no, and then like, and then trust. Sorry, I skipped a spot. So no is at the beginning, and then like, oh, I think I like you. I know I like you. Oh gosh, I really like you. I like you enough to trust you, and when I trust you, I'm going to give you my business if I can. I'm going to introduce you to my connection. I'm going to spend time with you. I'm going to develop a relationship with you, and on the other side of that trust bridge is the pot of gold.
So I know that just like in dating, every relationship is different, but I mean, there might be an average too, so I'm curious, like, do you have an average for how long it takes to cross the trust bridge?
I don't have an average, but I say that there are 5 stages. So stage 1 is nice to meet you. Stage 2 is I'm getting to know you. Stage 3 is I think I like you. Stage 4 is I'm starting to trust you. And stage 5 is I trust you. Now sometimes in one conversation, you're going to go through all of the stages. And sometimes it's going to take you a year or 2 years. I think the average number of touches is about 7 to 10. So if you can say from the time that you sent that first email, you had that first handshake, then you went for coffee, then you went for lunch, you went to a networking meeting together, you sent them a piece of business, you sent them a handwritten note because they were lovely and sent you business or spent time with you. By the time you get to 7 to 10 touches, you're well on your way to the other side. But everyone has a number, Rachel, and nobody knows what their number is, and nobody knows what your number is.
That makes sense.
For some people, it's one and done. If I've met you, we've connected, it's love at first sight, we are separated at birth, we are going to be friends forever. We are the same kind of people, right? In my book, Vision to Reality, I talk about PLUs, people like you and me. So when I meet someone who's like my friends, I'll say, oh, they're a PLU, you're going to love this person, right? So they've automatically crossed over a few of the stages on the trust bridge because I've given them my endorsement, right? But for most people, it's going to take a few times before someone trusts you enough. And it also depends on what it is that you're selling and how much it costs. Now, I do very high-level coaching, and it's fairly expensive for some people. And so it takes me a number of times for some people to feel like they can make that investment with me, that what I'm saying is true, and that they're going to get the results that I'm saying that they will most likely get. But for other people, they call me up and they go, I have 16 people who tell me you're the cast me now, and here's my Amex number. Can we start right now? Right? We've obviously crossed all the way over to stage 5, and I get their cash, their connections, and eventually I can make a contribution to them.
Those are, yeah, totally makes sense. So I'm curious, you mentioned one of your top 3 of like business success secrets is time management. And so I guess I'm then wondering, you have 144 connections and potentially more from the people who are on the last column. Mm-hmm. And it's going to take anywhere from 1 to like 7 to 10 interactions before you cross the bridge, and then you're going to have to maintain the relationship. So that's a lot of relationships. I'm curious what that looks like for you on a, like how much time are you spending on this?
I'm spending a fair amount of time, but let's walk all the way through a relationship. So once we have gotten into a relationship with someone, you determine how often you need or want to connect with them. And I'm going to say it's either 2, 3, 4, or 6 times a year. Very few people are 12 times a year, so monthly. So once I've talked to you and we're besties, right, we're strategic partners, we know who each other are, I don't need to call you every 30 days and go, hey, Rachel, it's me again. You're like, why does this woman have nothing else to do? Why is she always calling me? So I'm going to stay in touch with you in a myriad of ways that don't require an hour of time or a half an hour of time. Having said that, there are some people, and the 80-20 rule comes into play here, right? 80% of your business is going to come from 20% of your people. So that upper leftmost corner of your 12 by 12 is where the most of your business is going to come from, and that's where you're going to concentrate most of your time on your relationship. The other 80% of the people are going to take up 20% of your time. But you don't want to do 20% less business. Right. So you're going to make sure you stay in touch with those people. I spend an inordinate amount of time in the car, and so I always keep a list of people with me. And I actually, as far as the 12 by 12 goes, I schedule the next time I'm going to reach out to someone. They actually pop up in my phone. So if I have someone I need to talk to every 3 months, if I talk to them today, I'm going to put them in for 12 weeks, and their name is going to pop up in my phone like, oh, today's the day to call Rachel. I'm going to either pick up the phone and call you, or I'm going to shoot you a quick email, or I'm going to send you a link to an article, or I'm going to send you a copy of my latest book, or I'm going to send you a copy of my latest favorite book that I'm loving and reading, or, just something, right? And I have a whole bunch of ways in business dating to keep in touch with people that are easy and quick, and yet make sure that people don't forget who you are, so that right when they need you the most, they can connect with you. So it takes a fair amount of time, but not as much time as you might think. And like any system that you put in place, the majority of the work is going to happen on the front end. But I'm sure you have a best friend that you don't talk to every single day.
No, you're absolutely right.
Friends you talk to every single day. But I'm sure you have best friends, like I do, that I don't talk to every single day. But months can go by, sometimes years, and we can pick up the phone and it's like no time has passed. Those are these types of relationships where you've gotten so deep with them and entrenched with them. And I'm thinking of these as lifetime relationships. So that eventually, if I'm only talking to you twice a year, just twice a year, it's like I've come home again to you and we're connecting again. And it just might be the right moment. So this particular book, it's 99 cents on retail on Amazon. And so I've sent out a ton of emails to people who I feel like if I asked them for it, they would give me their Amex card number if I don't already have it. And I said, hey, you have an Amazon account, so you're going to pre-order this book for me, right?
Yeah.
I've had a large number of people just say, this is so awesome, I'm so excited for you, and of course I'm going to order this book for you. Like, we're close enough that I can ask them to spend their money for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I was thinking as you were talking to, for sure it's going to be one of these things where you put more effort in the beginning, but especially, you have a coaching practice, you have different things where, like just for your hour output compared to the money that you get back in, it's like, it really makes sense from a monetary perspective too. Let's say someone has an information marketing business and they sell like cheaper information products. Would you recommend maybe doing this 12 by 12 with like potential affiliates?
Oh, absolutely. Here's the cool thing about the 12 by 12 is it doesn't have to be a 12 by 12. It can be a 3 by 30. It can be a 6 by 18. I have one guy who has so many connections that I jokingly say that he has like a 487 by 660. Right? But this is for, just the person who's like, gosh, what do I do? How do I build a network? So you can customize it in any way that you want. It's really identifying who, at its very essence, is identifying who you need to network with, how many of those connections in that particular area you know, how many you don't know, and what you're going to do to meet them and create a relationship with them.
Yeah, I really love just making it a system and making it very easy for people. It just makes it, especially for people who are more thinkers than feelers, like it just really gets that in a very linear, here's exactly what to do kind of fashion, which is beautiful.
When it's in an Excel spreadsheet, and the cool thing about Excel is you can actually add notes to boxes. So whatever you put inside of a box, there's actually a function that says insert note. And so you can actually write a little note to yourself. As I'm talking to my connections, I'll put in like new baby due in 3 weeks. Or baby born, Sonia Rose, 3:15. Right? And then I make a note, on my task list, which I actually use bullet journal, bulletjournal.com, right, which is not a thing, it's a system, which clearly I love the system. But I make a note of my bullet journal to send a congratulations note about Sophia Rose. And it's like, when was the baby due, or what's the baby's name, or, right? Like, where do you capture all of that? Because it can either be in your contact management system, it can be in your, in your actual contact in your iPhone or your Android or whatever you use, but it can also be in your 12 by 12. And I put it on my desktop. I like pop that sucker right open. Like, who haven't I talked to in a while? And especially when I'm running around, I know I'm going to be in the car for hours. Like, I'm dialing one call after the next. Hey, I'm just calling to check in and say hello and how are you? And people love that.
Absolutely. Oh, and you know what? It popped into my head, but obviously for people listening, not everybody's going to be in their local area to do the coffee or food. So I guess then it would just be a Skype date or a phone call, right?
Yes. I have a couple of good friends, one in Paris and one in London, and I wish that I could teleport myself over there. But yeah, we have Skype dates for sure, and we schedule them, on a pretty regular basis so that we can keep the relationship going and see each other face to face, and that's pretty cool. So where there's a will, there's a way, right? That old saying.
Absolutely.
Applies here. And some people I've met in person in other places, and then gotten to know them so much better over Skype, not even being in their physical presence.
Awesome. So for introverts, again, that's even an extra added layer of, if you're not in the same city. So another thing you said is that you can't do the right thing with the wrong person, and you can't do the wrong thing with the right person. Can you share more about this, and also just how you know that you've met the right or wrong person?
Okay, so this came from when I was dating my husband. So when I first met my husband at the end of the first date, he goes in for the kiss, and I was like, oh wait, hold on. I have done this before, and I'm still single, so we're going to try something new. And months later, he kind of calls me out, and he's like, so what was up with that? And I said, I had done a little kissing on the first date, and I was still single, so I was going to do something new. And he just looked at me, and he's so amazing, my husband. He looked at me, and he said something profound, which was, you can't do the right thing with the wrong person, and you can't do the wrong thing with the right person. If someone's going to like you, they're going to like you. And someone isn't going to like you, they're not going to like you. There's nothing you can do about it. Right?
Yeah.
And further to that, and so this is like the next step in this process, is the more authentic you are, the more you let people determine whether they like you or they don't like you.
That's very true. And I think I'm glad that we went over this, because I think just having that mindset of, if I'm going to be authentically who I am, the right people will be attracted, the wrong people won't. It really does give a lot of freedom to just let you show up as you actually are, and just not make a meaning if for some reason you don't connect.
Exactly.
Beautiful.
Don't force it. Don't hide yourself. Be authentically, wonderfully yourself. And the more, it goes back to dating in a way, and I didn't write about this in the book, but in retrospect, maybe it'll be a blog post. Have you ever met two people that they've become friends, and they're friends, and they're both going on dates, and then they come back and go, and it's a man and a woman, right? And she'll go, I just can't find the right guy, and it turns out that the right guy was there all along, and of course the best friend has fallen in love with her. She was authentically herself, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm in love with him, because he was authentically being himself. While they're out dating, and they're showing up as their representative, right? They're being their false self to try to be perfect for the person that they're dating. And then they come back to their best friend, and they're like, oh, and they're totally authentic, and they end up falling in love because they were authentic with each other.
Absolutely. Have you heard of Alison Armstrong?
I have. I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, me too. So I'll just say for everyone, one of the things that she talks about that I find is so interesting is she said that when you're with someone who you find like a 10 out of 10 on attractiveness, then you just start to be in this place where it's like your chemicals aren't really letting you act normally because you're just like all flustered up with those hormones. And so she actually recommends being with somebody that you find a 7 out of 10 on attractiveness so that you can come across authentic. And she said in those relationships when you're not trying so hard or when you're not like at that crazy chemical cocktail, those last the longest.
Yes, I believe she calls it twisting yourself into a pretzel.
Yes.
To twist yourself into a pretzel to become what the other person wants, as opposed to just being authentically yourself. And what's interesting is that's exactly how I was with my husband when we first met. Is I was like, look, if it's under 75 degrees and sunny, I'm freezing. So it's 40 degrees and cold outside, and so I'm going to wear jeans and a heavy coat. Is that cool? Or because he wanted to go walk around outside. And I was like, all right, but I'm going to look like the Nook of the North. So if it's for you, then move right along, right? And the more authentic I was, the better it worked. And I thought, oh my gosh, all those years that I wasted twisting myself into a pretzel, wearing high heels and a mini skirt on a day when it's 40 degrees outside and just like wishing for the next time I was warm as opposed to just being comfortable so I could be comfortable and authentic. In the moment, enlightening, for sure. And so that's how it is in business dating. It's like you're just going to meet the people that will be happy to take care of your customers for you and happy to take care of you. And even sometimes people you can be friends with. And so then you go to dinner and you hire them and they hire you and your friends. And it's amazing. And they're referring business to you and vice versa. And I have lots of those relationships and they are truly wonderful and fulfilling all the way around. Now some people are just going to be professional relationships and it's not going to bleed over into the personal. And there's nothing wrong with that. Because we do have a finite amount of time, screen time, spent, socially with people. But for the most part, you can really create a number of wonderful relationships that serve you in so many different ways.
Yes. And one last thing I just want to add with the authentic piece is just, I feel like it's going to be a lot easier to create those relationships, like in that, like churn and burn and people not working out if you're authentic, because that's what people crave.
They do. They like you so much more when you're authentically yourself. Even if you have tics or nuances that are a little crazy or things about yourself, idiosyncrasies, they find them cute and amusing because, again, you can't do the wrong thing with the right person. They're just going to think that you're cute and adorable, and they're going to call you on your nonsense when you need to be called out, but they're still going to love you anyway.
Yes.
Those are the best relationships. In my opinion, those are the relationships I enjoy the most.
Absolutely. Also wondering, what, in your opinion, are the 4 cornerstones of a successful networking career?
Gosh. Well, they are time. It's going to take a fair amount of time, as we've discussed, to find the right people to be your clients and friends and strategic partners. The second thing is money. You're going to invest a fair amount of money on coffees, lunches, gifts, referral fees if you pay those types of things to build your stable of solid clients and contacts. So just be prepared, and here's my rule. And this is an etiquette rule. I used to teach a class on etiquette, and the thing that really got people was if you invite someone somewhere, whether it's to breakfast or to Paris, you pay.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, the number of times when I'll go to lunch with someone, they've reached out to me and said, oh, I'd like to take you to lunch, or I'd like you to come to this gala benefit dinner with me, and then they'll say, and that's $200. All right, well, I don't mind, but you invited. Oh, for inviting is expect to pay, offer to pay. Now, they may refuse for you to pay, or they may say, well, all right, well, if you get this time, then I get the next time. And that's the fun part, right? But do the inviting, expect to pay, and then my third tip on that one is don't keep track. I don't ever keep track who paid, especially if it's me. I always offer to pay. I'm always throwing down, right? If you get to the restaurant early, give your credit card to the server and just say, don't take the other person's money. That's one way to handle it. I'm a ninja. It's going to take that investment. So that's the second cornerstone. The third one is emotion. You have to have genuine affection and caring for those with whom you engage in a business relationship. If that is not how you are, if you are a transactional person and you're really just wanting to trade time for money, if you're really just getting to know someone so that they will purchase your widgets or your service or product from you, then my philosophy isn't we don't align, which is totally fine. I think mine's better. But I think you have to have emotion. I think you have to buy in. Because when you genuinely care about someone, I think the relationship is so much richer. And I don't know that we're taught to care, which is part of the reason that I wrote this book and I'm talking to you, is because I care about people and I want them to do something better, which is what you're about too. Yeah. And then finally, patience. In order to spend the time and the money and the emotion, you have to have patience. And so to end up on the profitable side of networking, you have to view this pursuit of building these relationships more like an Ironman triathlon than a 100-yard dash. That you're going to be in it. When someone says, oh, Honorée, I just can't hire you. I'm just not there. But I want to hire you. I'm going to get there. I'm like, well, you're in luck, right? Like, we're still going to be doing this in a few years. So no rush, right? When the time is right, then the time is right. And so let that be for the other person when the time is right for them, because some people need to see you 17 times before you cross their trust bridge. But all of a sudden, have you ever noticed that someone will go from really like reticent and resistant to you to all of a sudden they like you? And you're like, what happened? Honestly, all that's happened is you've hit their number of times. However many times they needed to feel comfortable with you.
And specifically what I like about that is if you're patient and you're not like having this kind of formula thing like I asked before, it kind of takes away the sense of desperation, which then makes people even more attracted to you.
Yes, when it's all on your timing. Right, I'd like everyone to start yesterday. I mean, for real, right? That's how I'm wired. It's like, yes. Like, I'll call my attorney and he'll say, well, when do you need this contract? And I'll say, well, gosh, Adam, I had that idea today, so I want the contract yesterday. What do you mean? It's not a trick question. We're all wired for instant gratification. But the one thing that we can't get instant gratification in most of the time is relationships.
Yes, and so that made me think when you were talking about the etiquette part of it. So in your book, do you also go over, because you've taught the etiquette classes, you said sometimes people are surprised at some of the things you share. Do you go over like just how to like be somebody that people want to get to know just from an emotional perspective? And if not, you do. Cool.
Yeah.
Cool. So like what to say, you talked about, you mentioned in the book too, spectacular. I think that'll be really, really helpful for people.
Yes. So what to say, when to say it, how to say it, how often to say it, what to talk about when you're on dates, what not to talk about. There's some things to avoid, right? You don't ever want to put your foot in your mouth. Or if someone was saying at dinner the other night that their dad was a professor at a university and she had met this guy at a party and she said, oh, do you know so-and-so? And he's like, yeah, that guy's a real jerk. And why, do you know him? He's like, yeah, that's my dad.
Awesome.
Right? And you never want to say, I hate X type of religion or whatever. I don't like Republicans or Democrats or whatever, right? And until you know your audience, right? And part of that is getting to know someone really well.
Yes.
Before you express any view that might be offensive, right? Not that we're telling you to be authentic 1 minute and inauthentic the next minute, but it's also having just respect for yourself and respect for another person.
Exactly. I'm glad you said. I was just going to ask you that actually about the authentic and then making sure. Cool. Well, this has been really spectacular. The 12 by 12, like I said before, was the highlight of our last talk. And so just being able to drill into this even more and give people a very solid foundation of like what it looks like, how to do is just spectacular. And I'm sure that people are going to want to purchase your book and get just all the templates. So can you let people know where to find that and then also where to find out more about you in general?
Sure. So the book is available on Amazon, like I said, for pre-order. So 99 cents, Rachel.
I'm buying it once they hang up.
99 cents, and then it'll go up later after it's released. And then honoreecorder.com, but the link for all the stuff that we're talking about, so the 12 by 12 and lots of other goodies in the book are available on my website. So I give that link in the book, so honoreecorder.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you very much again.
Well, you're welcome, and I have presents, if you'd like.
You have presents?
I have more presents, yeah.
Oh, duh.
Okay, so people go to Honorée Corder podcast, they will find 2 free chapters of my book, Vision to Reality, and also a way to get my very first book, Tall Order, 7 Master Strategies to Organize Your Life and Double Your Success in Half the Time, for free.
Sweet. Thank you.
I like to get presents. So I figure the best way to get something is to give it. So
love it. Awesome. Well, thank you again. This has been great.
Thank you for having me, Rachel. You are a doll, and I'm always so delighted to talk.
Yeah, you're so mutual. I was actually, when Christina reached out again to have some repeat guests, and I forgot who she was originally working with. I'd seen her name before, but you want to be back? Yay! Thank you so much for listening to Better Life. This time. You can find all show notes for this episode at rachelrofay.com. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe so you can automatically get access to all new shows. Let's also connect. Just go onto Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram /RachelRofay, and we can talk there. The opinions of all guests here are their own, and I'm not necessarily endorsing any of them. I do want to give you perspective, though. And always remember, if you have a choice, choose a better life.